Commission to order. Would you stand with me, please? I'll lead the prayer, and Will, would you lead the pledge? Heavenly Father, thank you again for this day and the beauty you've given us and the beauty of this day, Heavenly Father. We thank you, and we thank you for the time of the year, the spring time of the year, the blooming of the refreshing of our earth, Heavenly Father, and we thank you for that. And we pray that you'll just be with us tonight in our deliberations. We be fair and just to all. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated. Would you call roll, please, ma'am?
Richie Bolin. Veronica Buchanan. Gary Farley. Will Jordan. Mike Cush. Jeff Phillips. Steve Sandlin. Mike Vaught. Vincent Windrow. Craig Lynch. We have a quorum.
I'll entertain a motion on the reading of our minutes. Good. Do I have a second? All in favor of the motion say aye. All opposed no. Motion carries. David, Coast Department.
Monthly reports on the table, Mr. Chairman.
All right. We looked that over tonight. If any questions, we'll have for David. Doug, was anything withdrawn or deferred?
No, sir.
Okay, we've got reclassification requests. Let's move down here to Mr. Rodney Jackson's and get his out of the way, and then we'll come back up. Fire hydrant waiver request.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this is a waiver request for Mr. Rodney Jackson, lives at 5860 Rocky Fork Road. They're asking for a fire hydrant waiver from the subdivision regulations. The property is about 2 acres in size, and we do have a copy of the plat, which is included with your revised packet that's on your table. It's the very last page in that packet. The applicant is proposing to transfer about 29,000 square feet from the adjacent lot to the east to his subject property. Since the property is less than 5 acres in size, a fire hydrant is required to be within 1,000 feet of the property. Information provided by CUD, however, does indicate that the line that serves this property would not be able to adequately hold, the pressure wouldn't be adequate to actually sustain a fire hydrant. So they're asking for a waiver to that provision. I did want to point out there is an existing fire hydrant about 2,560 feet from this property to the east. It should also be noted that there is an existing house on the property. The plat request is really just to square up the property, not to do any kind of redevelopment purposes. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. I believe the applicant surveyor is in the audience.
Does anyone have a question? Have a motion? Motion to have a second. All in favor of the motion say aye. All opposed no. Motion carries. Okay, reclassification request, Mac Moss rezoning and conditional use permit. Done?
Thank you, Chairman Lynch. Our application before you tonight is on, the property is located on Lebanon Pike. It's about 5.25 acres in size. The request is from R15 to services with a list of conditional use permits. There's about 32 uses in all, including department and discount store, gas station, video rental, workout gym, amongst many others. There should be a list in your packet in front of you. The applicant is proposing to create roughly 30,000 square feet of new office and retail space. This will be located on lots 62 and 63 of Waldron Crossing subdivision, which was originally approved back in October of 2007. This subdivision contains 59 residential lots and was reapproved recently in May of 2009, so it is valid. However, the infrastructure is not yet finished and the plat is not yet recorded. The infrastructure, including the step system, which these two businesses will be tying into, has not been finished at this time, but will be. Within the booklet, you'll see in front of you, the applicant is proposing to use underground utilities, have masonry material on the buildings, provide screening for the mechanical equipment and the dumpsters. So a lot of the conditions you see listed in the staff reports are actually based on what the applicant has proposed in his booklet. Now, the concept plan, as it stands right now, does not provide adequate room for the new landscaping regulations, which hopefully will be adopted at Thursday of this week. That is something that can be addressed during the site plan review process. Now, you might remember, back when the subdivision was originally platted, the Waldron View Drive actually ended in a stub out on the east end of the property. And since TDOT was going to require them to install a turn lane into the subdivision in order to handle the lots plus any future lots that were created. In order to remove that turn lane, they did redesigned the subdivision to remove the stub outs, so there are no stub outs anymore. However, I spoke with a representative of TDOT, and they did indicate that the commercial uses at the front would reopen the evaluation of whether or not a turn lane was required for the subdivision. And so we have gone ahead and recommended placing one on there. We did receive a couple of phone calls asking about this project and one phone call in opposition. So just giving you a sight, see the site still requires quite a bit of infrastructure work as it sits today. And it's Juniper Drive across the way. And the applicant is present, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions before we open it up to a public hearing?
Right, it was originally approved in October 2007 and then recently reapproved in May of 2009, the subdivision. This is the commercial part of the subdivision. No,
Commercial wasn't
just the residential.
What did we approve these lots for? Was it just showed us a large lot in the subdivision? I mean, I know we had a mindset that something would be coming back, but we just left it as large tracts, I guess, on
Yeah,
the subdivision
I think
approval.
there was an understanding of potential development on these sites in the future, but the zoning was not changed at that time.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, yeah, dear.
Could you repeat what you said a while ago about TDOT on the turn lane?
Sure. They removed the requirement for a turn lane for the subdivision because it fell right under the number of lots that they require subdivisions to be created. However, I did speak with a representative of TDOT, and they said that the commercial uses on the front would, they would have to reevaluate the subdivision with all the lots plus the commercial uses. It really depends on what uses went in.
They had stub out streets and then they changed it. So okay, any other questions? Okay, we'll open up to public hearing. Does anyone wish to speak for it? Jim?
Hello, I'm Jamie Reed with SCC. I'd like to go ahead and address Will's comment earlier. When we went and had this approved back in 2007, we had that approved with the intent we was coming back for those two lots with commercial. We'd always known that. And as far as the TDOT turn lane, we're not opposed to if it warrants a left turn lane for whatever commercial use gets at each lot, either lot. At some time, we're not opposed to the left turn lane if TDOT warrants that it needs a left turn lane. So just wanted to address that. But I'm just going to start here real quick and kind of reiterate some of what Elizabeth said in the book on page 1. Like she said, we are requesting the rezoning of the two lots for Water and Crossing subdivision from R15 to services. The site's approximately 5.25 acres located across from Juniper Drive on Highway 231. The services zoning is requested in lieu of straight commercial zoning in order to guarantee the quality of the development that is desired, as well as to restrict the uses, thereby minimizing the effect on the neighborhood residents. This site that we're looking at here is just identical to the one for the Fogle property out Highway 99 that we just got approved back in, September of 2009. Very similar, same scenario, same proposed uses. It was two lots. Gas station, the same allowable uses on sheet 12. So it's very similar to that aspect, just out Highway 99 on the south side of town. But as we go through the booklet, sheets 2 through 4, you'll see just some slides, just like she had up earlier, of the surrounding uses that surround the property, houses, and some construction going on. And sheet 5, you'll see the master plan of the subdivision with all 63 lots, 61 being residential, of course, with one being a step system, lot number 7, and lots 62 and 63 being the proposed future commercial lots. That was approved, like Elizabeth said, back in October 2007. Sheet number 6 here shows proposed site conceptual plans. These are just proposed buildings, not necessarily that these buildings will be built on these lots, but some proposed uses that would go, possibly could go there, like a post office, a convenience store / gas station, some retail / office space. What we tried to show here was that it was required that we'd have landscaping around the site, signs for the site, detention pond requiring to meet the stormwater regulations, along with some buffering for the signs and building up front. If we go on to sheets number 7 and 8, we kind of just go over some brief site characteristics. Each of the sites will be required to have curbing along with asphalt paving on each of the lots. All the dumpsters for each lot will have an enclosure that will be landscaped. At a minimum, parking will be provided to meet the county's minimum parking requirements. In addition, adequate room for foundation plantings at the entrances to the buildings for both lots had been provided to help soften the building and provide a buffer base to further enhance the architecture of the building. The site is proposed to have 3 access points on Waldron View Drive and 1 existing access point on Lebanon Pike. The site is currently served by, or being constructed to be served from CUD's utility district step system on lot number 7, and also being served by CUD's existing water line out front on Highway 231. And any of the on-site lighting that will be required for each of the lights will have no more than 1-foot candles at the property line. All on-site utilities will be underground. All mechanical equipment will be screened. And the proposed setbacks, what we've got for the development are as follows. Front, 80 feet, 10 on the sides, and 20 on the rear. And on sheet number 9, I've kind of briefly described some architectural features, like maximum building height of 35 feet. All buildings will be 1-story. Primary material for the buildings will be masonry. Sheet number 10 kind of describes some of the building materials. We're looking at only putting brick, split face block, or drive it, stone, or cast stone are acceptable materials. We're looking at the roofs that can be architectural asphalt shingles or standing seam metal. Trim and soffit areas are to be of metal. And the retail building and gas station buildings will be required to have storefront glass to be a minimum of 8 feet in height along the front elevations of the buildings. And we go to sheet 11, just going over some brief landscaping and planning requirements. The landscaping will be in conformance with the Rutherford County's latest landscaping ordinance that's fixing to be approved, and buffering. Foundation plantings we're going to also utilize to be up at the front of the building. All signs will be well landscaped to further enhance the site's overall appearance and quality. The trash enclosures, again, will be screened with brick walls, solid gates, and landscaping. And also the HVAC and transformers will be screened and landscaped. And we'll go to sheet number 12. Is just like Elizabeth said from the first. These are just our proposed allowable uses. We felt and picked these. We thought these were neighborhood-friendly uses, especially for the uses for the step system, which since we couldn't have a big demand on the sewer system, which it's basically going to be office / retail space and some low-impact uses like that for the neighborhood. But I'll accept any questions right now if y'all have any.
Company when the last
Yes,
presentation
yes,
was
sir.
made.
Yes,
What
sir.
was some of our concerns about? You said that the other one was
yes,
pretty
sir.
similar.
The biggest concern of the last one was the turn lane. And like I said on this one, we will provide a left turn lane if the state comes back and says it's warranted. If the turn lane's warranted there, we'll put one in. It's not a big deal. I mean, if whatever use comes in on that lot, right now it's undetermined. We don't know if it warrants a turn lane or not, but if a big user comes in that's going to have a lot of traffic generated at that one corner or something, then and it warrants a turn lane, then we'll put one in.
Sure.
We'll design one and show one. But that was the biggest concern.
Okay, other questions?
You said it'd be split face block or brick, but I noticed here somewhere it said textured metal is acceptable. Is that for the roof or?
That's for the roof, yeah.
Are we
not-
talking about,
not-
so all four sides would be a masonry product?
Correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Couple of questions. You show a picture of a gas station without any gas pumps. And
Those are the future low-impact gas stations.
and another one.
Which
Jamie,
one?
on page 9.
Y'all had to get me on that. Yeah, actually, the gas pumps are out front of the picture on the left. It just don't show the gas pumps, but we're just trying to show the impact of the glass out front, the broken up of the architecture, and the plantings kind of up front there.
We were kind of
course.
thinking it maybe for our electric cars, and you're going to have plug-ins.
It'd be nice.
One other question. You say you're tying into the step system. How can you do that if the homeowners are going to own and maintain that?
I've already allocated X amount of taps to both of those sites when I designed the step system. So there's allocated room already on the step system for these lots. So there's actually, I think, 6 houses equivalent right now to tie onto that. The old regulations by the state. There's new regulations now that will actually allow more flow into that system. So, but it actually I've got plenty of flow to handle for an office general retail type space. It's got a bathroom in there for an office. That's basically if there's not going to be people washing clothes, taking baths, stuff like that, that would generate a lot of gray water and stuff like that. So.
Okay, anyone else? Will?
One more. All mechanical equipment is to be screened. Is that gas pumps or is that heat and air units?
Heating, air units, anything attached to the building, not the gas pumps, no.
I was wondering how you were going to screen the gas pumps.
No,
if you
just-
had a gas station.
You go get me all these gas pumps.
Rhonda?
Question to one earlier. If the commercial use is going to be accessing the step system, are you all going to also contribute financially to maintaining the step system?
Yeah, they'll have to do, yeah, they'll pay for their taps and their monthly water and sewer bills, which is on the same bill. So wherever they pay their water tap from, it will be the same. The step system is allocated on that tap. So when they pull that meter will be their sewer and water tap typically.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Jamie, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak for or against? Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. I had one concern from Ms. Nash out there. She lives right across the road from this development. She was concerned about the traffic and also she has some concerns about as far as the city, why the city wasn't moving from the city outward instead of outward inward. And I spoke with her about that, and I was concerned was about the traffic, the turning lane, the lighting, and I think y'all had pretty much so addressed that. And I did research on Mr. Moss, some of his prior developments. They was very sightly. And I'm going to honor y'all's recommendation. I'm going to let y'all make the recommendation on it and go from there. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
How do you feel about a turning lane out there from a safety perspective?
Well, I can see later on as it continues to grow, and which is absolutely, it's growing out there as it is now, as Will knows, and I imagine everybody up there. More than likely, Jeff, I would say yes, it probably more than likely it'd have to be a turning lane there, so. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Jamie, he addressed that about the little lamp lighting, and I think that would be pretty well to go along with this development. It's not going to be lit up like a Christmas tree, I would assume. Am I correct, Jamie? Okay. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Not, we'll close the public hearing. Come bring it back to the committee. Yeah, Will.
Well, I don't mean to be a negative person, but I've got a little bit of a problem with a full-blown convenience store gas station right there in front, and that's a pretty major commercial use. It's usually open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That gas trucks coming and going, and I think I could support pretty much all this package without the full-blown gas station, because that just, in my opinion, takes it to a different level. That's just a lot more light, a lot more everything. A retail center is probably going to be open 6 days a week, some 5 days a week. The gas stations are open 7 days a week, and I think a lot of people out there don't realize what's going on right there, because that subdivision has been under construction for 2 years off and on, and they've gotten kind of used to seeing the equipment sitting over there. But I just personally think that a gas station is pretty aggressive for neighborhood retail. I mean, Doug, what's staff's thoughts on this? I mean, it's kind of a little commercial node right in that area, but am I out in left field thinking that?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, your concerns are I think are valid. At the same time, with proper screening and the lighting plan and everything that they're talking about, I think it can coexist with the community. Like you said, the development of the neighborhood has been ongoing for a couple of years. There still aren't any houses there. So, if these are the first things that go in, I mean, people know what they're getting into before they buy. With our new landscaping regulations, they are going to be required to provide more landscaping than what you're seeing here, and possibly even some, if they choose, some fencing. I think one positive aspect, something that you might want to consider, is just looking at the location of that convenience market to those lots behind it. There's a good amount of open space right there, green space, plus the building is shielding the gas pumps. So from that standpoint, yeah, I think it's going to have a buffer between it. I understand your concerns at the same time, but I do think if it's designed correctly, it could coexist with the community.
I wasn't necessarily concerned about the people in the subdivision behind it, because if they came in and bought a house behind a gas station, that's their decision to make. I was more concerned about the subdivision across the street, because that Juniper Drive goes right back into the subdivision. There's houses down through there. Those people are there already. They're the ones I'm concerned about. If somebody wants to buy a house behind a gas station, that's their own conscious decision to make myself.
Mike?
As a planner, do y'all remember we approved, I think, out Salem Highway right before you get to Rockville School in the Bend? I don't remember the name of the subdivision that's behind it, where the landscaping place was, and we approved. As planners, how do you think this compares to that?
I mean, the situation. I mean, of course, they're never the same. Of course, they're unique in that sense. I mean, they're both on. At this point, they're both on 2-lane roads. You've got the Dollar General, which is proposed the one on Highway 99. You've got similar type uses in this development, both adjacent to subdivision. Maybe just kind of thinking about that area, maybe a few more existing houses on this one than there were on the one on 99. But at the same time, there are a lot of similarities between the two. Again, both on 2-lane roads. Gas station proposed on both of those. Again, I think that if it's done correctly, they can coexist.
If memory serves me correctly, we required a turn lane out there if the state allowed it, just like we did on Las Casas Highway. Is that correct?
That's right.
Gary?
The Salem Highway that you spoke of is in my commission district, and this right here is probably 95% similar to that out there that was approved back, I don't know, less than a year ago, with the discount store and a gas station and a little strip mall type. And I think a lot of the same, the list is, I think, probably the same thing. It's the same exact thing.
Any other questions?
Pictures across the road one more time. And I guess this was advertised and nobody came from that subdivision?
Yeah, it was advertised. We did
Yeah,
place the
actually,
sign.
sorry, on that sign, on that picture right there that you just went by, you can actually see the sign right there, and that's
What
one
about
of
letters?
them.
How far if you look straight across the road, Juniper Drive goes back, so I forget our policy on letters. Everybody within
500 feet.
500 feet. Those are real deep lots there, so you probably only got 2 or 3 neighbors. But that goes back into a full-blown subdivision back in there.
Okay, anyone else? Questions? Jamie, would you like to address anything about the convenience market? Yeah.
Exact same uses that were approved with the Fogle site out Highway 99. The only difference in this one is that we have a post office proposed here. Actually, if you look at Clear Ridge, I think there's 70-something lights existing that goes through the back of that subdivision. And it was in 2003, yes, it was a landscaping business, but in 2003, he got it rezoned to agricultural services. And then in 2009, we rezoned it to services, just like what you're reading right now, less than 6 months ago.
How many acres did we zone out there?
It was,
It was basically just 2 lots.
it was 2 lots. It was really close to that. I can't remember. It's 5 or 6 acres. I mean, it was almost identical.
2.5 or something like
No,
that.
no, no.
Closer to 5, I think.
Yeah, it was closer to 5 because there was 2. And I mean, both of them had detention ponds, landscaping, the same uses are on that last sheet, like I said, except for the post office use. But both of them split a subdivision, and actually 99 was existing. This one's not even existing as far as what's behind it, but across the street. Like I said, Clear Ridge Drive has probably 70-something houses back there. But I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, any other questions, Jamie? Thanks, sir. Any other questions? Have a motion. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that we approve this request, and also that if TDOT deems that there should be a turn lane, that TDOT, we ask TDOT, and if they say that it needs to be a turn lane there, that
So you want that condition to read if warranted by
if
TDOT,
warranted,
as opposed to
like we
if-
did on the other ones,
Okay, so if not allowed, but if warranted, is what you're wanting.
if warranted.
I would second that. How did we do it on Salem Highway last gas? What was our wording? I'd like to be consistent however we do it.
Well, yeah, the wording on those other two is basically as you see it in the, in here. Now, I will
One
say,
on Last Casas Pike, we put if they would allow it on Last Casas Pike. That was done a little different than the Dollar General over there.
right, and I mean, basically the wording that you see here is about the way it was roughly.
Every being consistent is what I'm all about, being consistent.
Okay,
If
so
that's-
let me just make sure we're clear. What you're saying is if TDOT's going to say, yeah, we'll allow the turn lane even if it's not warranted, you still want to see a turn lane. Is that what you're saying?
the last two have been worded is what we need to do.
Okay.
The Dollar General on Last Casas Pike, we did that one if they would allow it.
Right.
If I'm not way off base. And the one on 99, we did if warranted. So there's a whole lot of difference.
99 was warranted. I don't remember.
No,
that
it was
being
both
the case.
required.
No.
Well,
If
they'll
they
allow a
allow
lot
it.
more than they'll warrant. Some things they'll allow you to
Now,
put
I
one.
think in this situation, it's a little,
Did you
we
do
have a
the
little
other
bit
one,
of,
too? Come on, did you do the other one too? To clarify this.
this last time. Last time it was, Bob Ferris, I think, made the motion and was adamant about it being, they didn't care if it warranted it or not. He wanted the left turn lane. But what we're trying to say and get approved is if it warrants a left turn lane, which only makes sense if it warrants a left turn, put one up there. If you can't just allocate, you think it needs one over here because you think it does, it needs to be based on some type of reasoning or based on something, not, if it warrants it just as a detention pond, warrants it due to stormwater, or the road warrants 3 lanes versus 2 lanes, you've got to have some justification to put a left turn lane in, not just because you think it needs one. The state, yeah, anybody will let you put one in there. The state wouldn't mind if you repaved the whole city. But if it warrants the left turn lane is what you need to look at, in my opinion. It depends on what use. I mean, you might get a, yeah, you might have a little ice cream parlor in there that buys it or something that may generate 5 cars a day, and then you built a left turn lane for nothing. That's why he changed the entire subdivision back in a year and a half ago to the exact way it is. He lost lots to redesign it so he wouldn't have to put a turn lane into that subdivision. He doesn't care if whoever buys the lots out front, if it warrants the left turn lane to put a left turn lane in, but to justify just throw a left turn lane in there when it doesn't warrant it does not make any sense, especially right now during the economic times that we have now, where we're fortunate enough to hopefully have somebody buy a lot and generate some sales tax revenue for the county and stuff out there without placing more stipulations that aren't warranted from TDOT. If they're warranted, yes, we'll do one, but not to place the burden of him spending $150,000 on a turn lane that's not warranted doesn't make any sense, in my opinion.
Okay. Do you have a question?
Doug, I got a question for Doug, and Jamie might want to stick around. If there are 3 lots here and they sell one at a time and they get approval and the first use may not warrant a turn lane, is TDOT going to look every time you issue another building permit? Because if we approve this and they say, well, we don't know what the uses are and you don't need a turn lane today, and then you come up and you put an ice cream shop,
I can tell you,
when does it cross that threshold, and is somebody going to look at it every time a lot sells?
The only time TDOT's going to look at this is if when we tap on to the highway out there. And what we could do, y'all could require, is that I submit it. Yeah.
Now, what a solution to the, and Jamie, let me just throw this out there. A solution to this might be, go ahead, if this is approved, and it's approved with them, depending on the warrants of a turn lane out in that area, we can send them the same thing that he's providing us and say, okay, these are the list of the uses that he's proposing. Okay, now there are several of them. Now, what I would think they would do is probably look at the ones that have the highest traffic to depend whether or not the turn lane is going to be warranted. So if they use the highest uses, and Jamie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but
Doug's exactly right. What I could provide is the worst case scenario on that proposed use right there on either of the 2 lots, and send the trip generation calcs along with our submittal to TDOT. And if they say, yeah, under this worst case scenario here, yes, you will need a turn lane if you put a gas station and such here. And then we would know, okay, if that happens, then we're gonna put a left turn lane.
yeah, then at that point, there's no no reason to keep going back to TDOT after every permit is issued, or if a tenant comes out and somebody else moves in, it's a different traffic generator than what's already there. They already know this is the worst case it could be, is it warranted or not? And based on those numbers, the turn lane is either warranted or is not.
The similarity between here and Salem Pike, the development that we talked about out there, is we don't know exactly what's going in right here, right now. And we did not know out there.
We had an idea for Dollar General at the time. We had an idea, but that's the only.
But it was not a set deal, was it?
Yeah, no, sir. And we didn't know what the retail use was adjacent to Dollar General in that strip mall either, and we still don't.
And on Las Casas Highway, we knew what it was.
Yes. It came in as a Dollar General.
To be consistent, and as long as we use the same language we used on Salem Highway, I think that'd be great.
Well, so, no, we can't on that, because like I was getting back, they require Salem Highway 99. What they did is they required it. They didn't care if the state come back and said no, it doesn't warrant it or not. They said you're going to put a left turn lane in there. What we're saying is we will put one in if the state says it's warranted.
Well, I thought Doug said we use warranted.
No, we didn't. Not in those other 2. No.
And
But
that's
Jamie, if you do say convenience store, post office, and worst case scenarios, that's all we gotta go back. You're not gonna get a post office, we know that, but that is a worst case scenario.
Well, I don't know, there's been some.
No,
We
they're
don't
closing
know.
post office, you're not gonna get a post, I promise you that.
I mean, basically, and the way that's been explained to me from TDOT, and I've had numerous conversations with them on the 99 site and the 96 site, Dollar General. They will, if y'all want to require the turn lane, if there is not some sort of a safety reason or just some sort of reason that they don't think it should be in there, then they will go along with the government locality. They'll say, if you want it in there, there's really no safety reason, nothing, but that's okay, we'll let you put it in. And what I think Jamie's proposing at this point is saying, okay, if TDOT comes back and says, yes, a turn lane is warranted here, then he'll put it in. If not, if TDOT does the numbers and says, well, there's really no reason to put this in there, then there won't be one required. So that's a little different from the last ones we looked at. So.
Okay. Mike, do you have a comment? Please. Hold on there.
Am I holding up the vote? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say the same thing I said several months ago on the last discussion we had about turn lanes. The way Gary has just made the motion, I'm in support of that. What I'm saying is, none of us in here are engineers, or at least traffic engineers. TDOT has set guidelines on what warrants and what does not warrant turn lanes. Who are we to say traffic count, safety issues, my grandma lives down the block, who's to say we can enforce that when there's design guidelines by the state that will warrant whether or not a turn lane is available? So I would support and second the fact that if TDOT and this and any one going forward, if TDOT says a turn lane is required, then it is required. I don't think we have the authority, nor would I like to be challenged in court by somebody who would bring TDOT standards up and says, you don't need a turn lane. Why are you enforcing this on me? I think we need to leave it to our civil engineers and traffic engineers to tell us and give us guidelines.
Okay. Thanks, sir. Steve? Thanks, Jamie. Hope you're not back up here.
Mr. Chairman. Thought I had it on. Hello? All right. I hate to bring this up, but you know, we have in other situations, I hadn't heard it brought up tonight on this proposed allowable uses. Are we not going toward the direction in our new plan and zoning ordinance that we go strictly commercial local, commercial highway, light industrial, industrial, blah, 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 and not have, and get away from all this use stuff? Because our picking list, we went from where we need 10 or 15, I think, David, wasn't it, in certain areas, to now we're, at 20, and then this list is 32. Some of them are relevant or basically the same, with one another, or they coincide with one another. But, here we got 32 on a punch list here when we're trying to narrow it down to, 15 or 20 or something, and we basically doubled it. If you'd comment on that a little bit as far as our trying to get away from this, and here we got 32 choices here.
I think to answer the first part of your question, Mr. Sandlin, is our zoning heading in that direction? I think as staff is concerned, I think we would like to see it open up a little bit more than it is now. However, that's yet to be seen. We're still in the plan portion of this. When we get to the regulations part, hopefully this summer, we start looking at that. That'll start kind of playing out as how it's going to be consistent with the plan. Again, as staff, I think we would like to see that. But at the same time, we know that it's not our final decision. So, but that would be what we would that we would recommend at least. Let me just kind of go through some of just a real quick history of this site. This application actually came to us originally as a plan development. After getting the application, reviewing it, we had some conversations with the applicant and said, well, based on our new plan development regulations, it was really going to be difficult for him to meet what those regulations called out as far as the open space and everything based on what he had. He had a smaller site, predominantly, or really just commercial type uses. The plan development regs, as we have drafted them, really envision, I think, larger applications, not smaller plan development applications like this. So we recommended he come back with the zoning to services and the conditional use permit for the uses. Like you said, a lot of these uses in here, I mean, this list probably could be pared down by several, like a retail shop, as an example. I mean, there's probably several things in there that would qualify as a retail shop. Another example, something like a specialty shop, something like a flower or plant store, a book or a card shop, in my mind, almost fall under that type of specialty shop. A health club, tanning salon, those could fall under personal services, things like that. I think what the applicant was trying to accomplish with this list was not having to come back before the planning commission for what might seem to be just a small change of use, where if he had, let's say, video rental, let's use that as an example, wasn't on the list, and after he has it built, somebody, a rental facility, a video rental facility, wants to come in and actually put the shop there. I mean, parking would be adequate. The use is consistent with everything that's out there. However, it's not on the list. You'd have to, spend the time and the resources to have to come back through 3 months, 4 months down the way to get something like that approved, which really, in my mind, wouldn't be necessary, except for the fact that it wasn't on the list. So I think he's just trying to cover his bases, is really what he's trying to do.
I think he's got it covered here, but again, I want to narrow this new zoning ordinance into a situation where we're in a better standing across the board and don't have all this laundry list stuff, and commercial has got its definition, and commercial businesses that can be in there, like our cities within our Rutherford County are doing already, and residential, commercial local, commercial highway or whatever, and then go right into light industrial, heavy industrial, and all that. And so where we don't have to go through this type of stuff and nitpick every little business that comes in, because I guarantee you there'll be something that's not on this list that's wanting to go there.
Right.
And then they got to come before us, and I don't think that's necessary.
Right, and I think that's kind of what he was trying to do here. And looking at a lot of the list of uses that he has here, just speaking about my familiarity with Murfreesboro's zoning code, a lot of these uses that he has in here currently would probably fall under your commercial local type zone, really. There may be an exception, and there are two in there, but for the most part, I would say the vast majority of these would fall under that, like a neighborhood type commercial use. I believe, and Mr. Lewis is here, so he'll correct me if I'm wrong. I do believe they allow convenience markets up to 5,000 square feet in the commercial local with the gas station. Yeah.
Gary, do you have a question?
To bring up on the issue between the 99, we knew at that time that there was going to be a Dollar General coming to that location. They were about 95% sure on that one. There was a requirement for that turn lane. Ultimately, what happened was TDOT come back and required the owner of that site to bond it, because they were not wanting that turn lane done at that time, because of they were talking about widening Highway 99. So what they did, they asked the developer. They said, you got to bond it, and I think Doug got involved and was told the same thing. So that developer there had to bond that turn lane. So ultimately, TDOT come back after we required it and said, no, not right now. So there's really nothing we could do. But yeah, it was required out there, because they knew pretty sure that there was going to be a Dollar General there.
Correct. That is correct.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. Would you call the roll, please?
Where are we on the turn lane? Are we requiring it, or if warranted?
Is my understanding the wording was going to be if warranted or required by TDOT. My understanding of Mr. Farley's motion. Am I correct?
That's right. Okay. Can you read the motion, please?
Basically, you would change the first condition to, if warranted by TDOT, request the use of turn lanes on Lebanon Pike, US Highway 231. And that would be the only thing changed. The rest would remain the same.
Okay.
And also, I'm sorry.
sorry, one more. On the turn lane, who submits that to TDOT? Whether it warrants it or not?
The developer submits that. Now, we
Okay.
can request a copy of that to make sure we know what they're looking at and, that we agree with what he's submitting.
Jamie said worst case scenario.
Right.
They'll submit worst case scenario.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I'd be willing to put in my motion that the worst-case scenario be presented to TDOT. That way, they'll know worst-case scenario and where they can make their decision.
Right, it's not submitted with 2 ice cream shops that don't have much traffic. And I wouldn't think Jamie would do that anyway, but, right.
Okay, all right, everybody ready? Got a motion, got a second? Would you call the roll, please?
Rhonda Allen. Richie Boland. Veronica Buchanan. Gary Farley. Will Jordan. Mike Cush. Jeff Phillips. Steve Sandlin. Mike Vaught. Vincent Windrow. Craig Lynch.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. All right, planning director's report.
Yes,
When
Mr.
they need to be at the county commission, what's the date? Jamie,
I can tell you in a second.
county commission, your next stop. County commission.
15th.
15th. April 15th. Okay, Doug?
Yes, just a couple quick items. You'll see sitting on your tables before you a little flyer. It looks like this. It's got Dr. Eric Damian Kelly. The planners in our office, as well as several planners, many planners in the state, are members of the Tennessee chapter of the American Planning Association. That association is broken into different sections. We're in the middle section. Our section is bringing Dr. Eric Damian Kelly to Murfreesboro, the Rutherford County Health Department, March 22nd, 2010. He is one of the national experts on issues of signage and various other. His reading is a lot of it's required reading in graduate schools, planning schools. He's actually spoken to this area before a couple different times. Very, very good speaker, very interesting. He's going to be. We're going to be bringing him here to speak about signage issues again on March 22nd at the Rutherford County Health Department. Considering that we're kind of in the process right now of looking at our sign regulations and updating them, this is very timely. We're actually kind of co-sponsoring this with the middle section of the American Planning of our state chapter of the APA. And I just would like to encourage you, if you'd like to come, that you all are more than welcome to come. There is a registration fee, however, we'll handle all that, so there won't be any out-of-pocket costs for any of you. If you'd like to come, this does count as training that you are required to have every year with Public Chapter 862, 2 hours of training to the required 4. We would encourage you to come. Again, Dr. Kelly is a very dynamic speaker, and we're really happy that he agreed to come here to speak to our group. It's filling up, but we don't necessarily have any kind of a deadline necessarily or a maximum, but the more the merrier, in my opinion. But if you could let us know by the end of the week if you're going to be coming or not, that'll give us an idea of numbers, if nothing else. And you don't have to fill out the form on the back. All you have to do is just give us a call and say whether you're coming or not. Shoot me an email, whatever, and then we'll provide that list to our section secretary out in Franklin, Miss Erin Randers. So that was just the one announcement I had. I also want to make just an announcement that our comprehensive plan steering committee is going to be having a meeting tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at CUD. They're going to be working on the future growth scenarios, kind of working through some of those tomorrow. We're really looking forward to that. We always thank CUD, as always, for allowing us the use of their Fox Auditorium. Again, that's tomorrow at 6 o'clock. One last item I would like to bring up. You'll know at the meetings we always print out the agenda packets for you and have them sitting there. In the interest of trying to become a more green office, if you will, and also to save some cost on copies, we're going to start providing about 2 or 3 extras that we're going to have in case someone forgets their packets. If you could, the packets that we do send to you, if you just make sure that you remember to bring those to the meeting with you. If there's any changes, of course, we'll make sure the changes get posted or get placed in front of you, so you'll have those. But as far as the whole packet is concerned, we're just going to have maybe 2 or 3 extra copies in case someone forgets them again. And we're just trying to, again, try to become more green and to save some money on copying costs and materials. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thanks, Joe. Dale? Anybody else have questions? Have a motion? Motion to have a second. All in favor say aye. How we lose Vincent?
Yeah, leave those there and we'll